On today's show, the Hawks have played 25 games, and there's a lot to discuss with the team. I'm joined today by Glen Willis of ATL 29 for part one of a two-part chat, and the first part is coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2120 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. And today, I'll be joined by Glen Willis of ATL 29 for part one of two about the Hawks after the first 25 games of the season. A great time to chat with Glen in the midst of this little break for the Hawks in between games, NBA Cup driven and all of that. So without any more delay, we'll dive in right now to myself and Glen talking all things Hawks after 25 games. I am joined once again by my good friend Glen Willis of ATL 29. Glen, it's been like a month that you and I've talked in this form. That's way too long, and I appreciate you being here as always. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a good little period here for the Hawks to get a break and hopefully get a little more healthy, and a breather for like maniacs who cover the team and work around the clock like you and others. So hope you get a little bit of a break this week too.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be traveling after today, which is fine. It's well timed and on some level. We were going to start with Hawks basketball, and there's plenty of talk about the season so far. An hour or so before this recording, we got some news that I feel like we should talk about at the beginning because it's relatively big news, even though it's not a player who's famous or prominent. But Jacob Toppin suffered a shoulder injury on November 29th playing in College Park. And we knew that. That was what we knew about the situation. I saw him on Friday. He was on the bench with the Hawks. The Hawks, I would say, rather infamously for the sickos like me and Kevin, avoid giving updates on guys when they're in the G League. I don't know if they use that as a crutch or whatever, but like, for example, Nicole Yorkshire has been hurt for a month plus, and we don't know what the injury is, or that's just his elbow was hurt, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah. But this time, unfortunately for Jacob Toppin, the Hawks announced today that he underwent surgery to repair a torn labrum in his shoulder. He's going to be out for the whole season. So I was not expecting that. I didn't know the severity of the injury. I don't think anybody did. But, I mean, the biggest thing is just unfortunate for him, obviously. A two-way guy that I know you and I both like quite a bit and thought could help the team this year. Fortunately, it's not like labrums are no fun. Ask Jalen Johnson, but it's not like going to be. He should be fine for next year. That's good. It's not more than like a 6-month injury, but still not ideal. And for the Hawks standpoint, they're another roster spot kind of down. He's still on the team. They've not waived him. I think they probably won't waive him. But any reaction to that kind of surprising announcement on a Monday?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. He's a guy. I mean, I think I've made it known to everyone. Like, I'm a fan of his game. He's a guy who understands where his value is, and that can be unusual for a guy into a contract to really understand the parts of their game to lean into. Defense, like his defensive equity, he has size and length, can defend on ball, do those sorts of things. And when he's on offense, he's pretty good in 0.5, pretty good at knocking down a three. When in the closeout happens, he's pretty good putting the ball on the floor, getting the paint, getting a paint touch, getting to the rim, has good verticality at the rim. And so for me, it's unusual for a guy at his, I guess, part where he is on his journey towards, I think he's going to be like I think he's not too many steps away from being a real NBA player. Now he might be in that, 10 to 13 range on a good team, kind of that spot on the roster spot, but he has good size, good length, good athleticism. And it's just really impressive to see a young guy say, these 4 or 5 things are the things I'm good at. I'm going to lean into those things because that's where my value is going to be most consistently derived from. Saw that in Summer League, saw that in preseason, and those things. So I'm a big fan of his. I know there's a lot of conversation about the Hawks really only have one small forward on this team, and he's 20 years old and doesn't always play a ton of minutes, And so Jacob Toppin's a guy I thought that along the way, if they were trying to save his games for the second half of the season or whatever it might be, but a guy who's trustworthy to kind of go out there and give you 12, 14 minutes, in a backup role, and especially when they're playing bigger teams where they need that size and they need that length on the ball, et cetera. So I thought he had the capacity to really help this team, and that injury is really unfortunate. And I think there's still a lot of Hawks fans that are like, well, what are they doing at that position to create some small forward depth? To me, Kristaps missing games. Obviously, no one really should be surprised by that. But for me, like the one roster gap on this team that can show up over and over and forces them to swing to 3 guard lineups when the second unit's on and things like that is not having another 6'8", whatever, small forward that can go out and defend, shoot the ball well enough, etc. That's a big roster gap that I think causes them problems when they're playing teams that play bigger.
Yeah, it definitely does. It was a question we talked about this summer. It still persists. And yeah, they can play the Krejci at the 3, but he's not really a 3. I think defensively, he's not really a 3. Dyson can guard 3s and does sometimes, but still morally is more of a guard on offense and all those things. And it's also really hard to find 3s. That's the thing. Like, you can find a backup center on the scrap heap. Like, it's not hard to do. Now, there are varying degrees of that, but that player is more available than a small forward who can play on your team. Those guys are generally not available in December. So you try to go, obviously you can make a trade, but the Hawks have a roster spot open, which is interesting. I know I mentioned it previously. You know, some teams might consider waiving Jacob Toppin, knowing he's going to be out for the season. That doesn't feel super Hawksy to me. They could do it. I have no idea if they will or won't. This is a new front office. This is the first time they've ever had this issue come up. But I would, until we see that they have done that, I would operate like they're not going to. And that means right now you're down to 16 on your roster, one of whom, Juricic, is out for however long. I have no idea, and probably won't play anyway. Eli Njai has not even been with the big league club really all year long. So really, you're really functionally at 14. And it's interesting to see what they do. Maybe they'll sign somebody, but finding a small forward is tough. So
and when Kristaps stopped playing on the second line back to back, you're down to 13, and then you do the math from there. And
Trey's been hurt for a month.
With 10. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate all of that. Hopefully they keep everybody else healthy enough. The NBA season is a grind, and there's bangs and bumps and bruises that everybody is dealing with all the time, and those sorts of things. But for me, I think having another, say, combo forward that can play for you would be a big help. Even if it's not as someone who you plan to play every single game. Like, oh, we're going against Toronto. They're massive. Like, they're massive up and down the lineup. Let's put a bigger lineup on the floor. Let's not throw. I'm sure we'll talk about Keaton plus Veit plus Luke out there against a team that's 6'9" across the board. Minus the point guard. And how do you deal with that? So that's we know Quinn wants to play fast. He wants multiple ball handlers on the floor, all that sort of stuff. He wants to, all that sort of stuff. But there are matchups where what he's doing with the rotation is just not as viable as in other matchups. And that's something that I think that will continue to kind of impact them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, hope Jacob covers quickly. He's obviously a guy we both like and is a well-liked guy in the locker room. People like Jacob Toppin. I think he's going to be hopefully an NBA player moving forward. And again, on the small bright side, this is not one of those 18-month injuries. Like, he should be okay in 6 months. And it's just unfortunate the timing because he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So the Hawks will have to figure out what to do. But in the meantime, he is going to be gone for the rest of this season. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything's going to feel different for you. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game. Instead, you're actually reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment, all in one place. And live betting is best when every game starts to shift, perhaps. When someone gets hot, or defense actually starts to tighten up, or momentum shifts after a turnover or a big play. And FanDuel lets you jump into that moment in real time. They have live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. They have player props update as the action heats up. You also bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. Keeps you locked into every single snap, every drive, every possibility. And as always, at FanDuel, they have you covered across the sports betting landscape as well, which includes the NBA, college basketball, college football, MMA, boxing, soccer, golf, tennis, auto racing, etc. Plus, they have all the pregame lines you're looking for as well. Point spreads, totals, money lines, game props, player props, and much more. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, push your NFL live bets all season long. That's FanDuel.com, push your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Have your health or family needs changed lately? Georgia's got you covered. Georgia Access is our state's marketplace for Georgians to compare, apply, and enroll in health insurance plans that offer the best value for their individual needs. Open enrollment is happening now. Visit georgiaaccess.gov today. That's georgiaaccess.gov. Georgia Access, health insurance for Georgia by Georgia. Glenn, I was going to begin by teeing up the fact that, like I said before, you have been on the show about a month. They were 4-4 when we last talked. They played 8 games. Since then, they are 10-7, and they're 14-11 after 25 games. It's a nice round number, 25 games, in addition to the long break they're on. So a good time for a catch up in general terms. And they're on pace, by the way, for 46 wins. That isn't exactly incredible, but when you factor in some challenging schedule bits, to say the least, and then also Trae Young missing 20 games and Porzingis missing maybe even a little bit more than you would have expected, even if I agree with what you said earlier, you can't expect him to play every game because he won't. Yeah. I think it's gone fairly well. I don't want to lead the witness here. I was going to ask you, like, broadly speaking, how has it gone for 25 games now that we've seen? Again, that's almost a third of the season. Like 27 is kind of the third mark, so we're almost there. What have you seen, and how do you feel after 25 games?
Yeah, so I think they're in a pretty good place. I mean, there are. I know we'll get into some X's and O's and talk about things that are causing things that opposing teams do defensively that cause their offense to come to a halt. We'll talk about 2 or 3 things there. But for me, you factor in Trae being out. I think their travel schedule has been insanely hard, and whether fans want to recognize how much of a toll that takes on guys that are playing 34 to 36 minutes a night. 4 games in a week. 2-3 weeks in a row, that stuff catches up with you, and it does show up. So for me, 14-11 is a good record to have played without Trae. There are some things that they're doing inconsistently. There's some, like I said, we'll talk about some things that defenses do that really kind of create offensive challenges for them. But I think they're sitting in a pretty good spot. The East is still, pretty collapsed, after the Detroit's kind of, has a pretty good distance on everyone. But it's not crazy, and they've had a pretty easy schedule, like compared to a lot of other ones. So I think that there's some coming back to earth that they'll experience as well, and such. So I think they're in a fine spot. And when Trae gets back, whenever I have no idea when that'll be. I don't think anyone knows when that'll be. But to win games, consistently without Trae, to do that with your defense, using defense to create offense, etc. I think that's something that they've had to learn to do more and more and more. I think that's always something Quinn has expected of them. But minus Trae, like, you're almost doubling down on, like, that has to be our source of offense, is turning defense into offense, etc. And you hear other coaches like talk about it, before the game. It's like, when they start turning you over, you're done. Like you can't win that game. When the Hawks start turning you over, it's over for you. You've got to find a way to protect the basketball. So I think they're sitting in a good spot. It'll be nice to see them get healthier, etc. But there are some things that opposing teams, even some bad teams, even some bad defensive teams, there are things that they are doing that the Hawks don't have the personnel and skill to overcome. And I think we'll get into some of that stuff.
Yeah, we definitely will. I do want to take the low-hanging fruit first and ask you about Jalen Johnson, because especially when we do this every day, I know I do this to myself. I get in the weeds, and I sometimes forget to just kind of lay things out to say, this guy is playing unbelievably well. And I did that a little bit on the show on Saturday night after the Wizards game, because I realized I really hadn't done it as much as I probably should have. But Jalen is on a ridiculous run right now. And just to put it plainly, like, the last 13 games, he's averaged 25.7 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 9.7 assists per game over like a month. And that's crazy. And you and I are not the box score guys. We're not the points, rebounds, assists, or keying guys. But you can't just do that. Like, that's not something that you could just do for a month. He's playing like a star. And I want to ask you, not necessarily about how sustainable that stuff is, but, like, is he playing at the level that it seems like he's playing at, that I think he's playing at? I think he's playing incredibly well. What have you seen from him beyond just, like, obviously leveling up with Trae out and taking on more of the responsibility every night?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it is just, you see the confidence building kind of game to game, and you see, I call them feedback loops, him activating, kind of learning from feedback loops. When he had a bad game, against the Wizards, for example, not the last one, but the prior ones of that. You could tell he goes and looks at the video. What was I not seeing? What was I not reading? What was I not doing well enough, et cetera. And you kind of see him building on that. I still continue to think that the best, say, 7 or 8 defenses in the league are going to know how to take certain things away from him. And he is still very early in his journey of being a primary, like a true primary initiator. And like I was, a couple of weeks ago, I put, out on X, I was like, I hope he has grace with himself. At least this is the first time he's ever been asked to really be the primary initiator in crunch time. That's never been a thing he's ever been asked to do before, ever. Like, until this stretch without Trae. But he's. I mean, you look at those numbers, and I know that numbers are numbers, but that's like all NBA kind of levels like stuff. There's like 4 or 5 people in the league kind of putting up numbers in those categories, and all the other 4 guys are all perennial all-stars, that are doing it. And so that in of itself is really, really impressive to me. And for me, when I watch Jalen struggle against a more complex defensive scheme, something he hasn't seen before, they're doubling from the weak side. How does he see that coming and get rid of the ball on time, make that read and make that pass on time? Or they're trapping middle of the court, or they're pushing him, away with the middle, kind of trapping him at the 3-point break. There's a lot of stuff that the best, say, 7 or 8 defensive teams can do that it's just something he hasn't experienced before at volume or at scale, something he hasn't seen before. And I think if Hawks fans are like, oh my God, that was such a terrible pass, or that was a read, or the jump pass where he lands before he gets rid of the ball, all those things that you kind of see happening. For me, like I encourage fans to remember, like, he's very early in this phase of being a primary initiator, primary creator for his whole team, and it's gonna be up and down at times. Now, there's a lot more good than bad, like across recent times. But there are still teams that are looking at him on film, looking at things he responds to a little more slowly. He reads a little bit more slowly, and they're going to keep throwing that stuff at him. But it is not on Jalen Johnson to by himself figure that out. His coaching staff needs to support him in working through this read results in this read, this roll read results in this play, this read results in this, because this is all brand new to him. But I mean, he's doing phenomenally well for a guy who is literally 20 games into the first phase of his career of being a guy who really is running the offense a lot. And so in that sense, I think it's very impressive, despite the fact that, again, teams are looking at what teams are doing that cause him trouble, and they're going to lean into that. They have the personnel to do it. But I mean, I give him very high marks for how he's been overcoming it. That Quinn will always say, you have a bad play, move on, right? And that's what he wants him to do. But no, Jalen's hard on himself. Jalen hates turning the ball over, creating easy points for the opponent, etc. So I think it's wildly impressive, like what he's doing, even if there are still going to be understandably, kind of bumps along the way as he continues to kind of learn things against teams that are really doing complex defensive stuff that he hasn't seen before.
I agree. And yeah, there was the one stinker against Washington the first time, and I think everyone just kind of looked at each other like, it's going to happen. It wasn't a big deal. Like, I didn't make it a big deal either. It just was what it is. Even within this last couple of weeks, there was a game where he didn't score until almost halftime, or did have a field goal till the second half. Well, I'm missing the details right now, but and he ended up with 25 points because he got settled in. Nobody panicked, and I think I could kind of tell when Quinn wants to make a point in post game, and he kind of took it there without being taken there. Like, to mention that Jalen kind of just stayed under control and didn't press when he was not doing much offensively in the first half of the game. And you kind of see those little moments of figuring it out and the light bulb coming on, and the talent's never been the issue. I know that there's this interesting conversation about how Jalen went 20th in the draft. And, I think because of that, he hasn't gotten the national attention that he probably should have gotten to this point, because draft slot anchors to a lot of different things. But I would always remind people, and I know we talked about this a little bit this summer, Jalen was the top 5 guy in that high school class. Like, he was not some late developing guy. He was a monster 5-star prospect, and you could see that. This is not some Linsanity moment that Jalen Johnson is having. He's supposed to be, not necessarily this, but he was on that trajectory. And you kind of see that those flashes in the on-ball stuff, and the passing has been really kind of the revelation in some respects. The only thing that I would point out, and I don't mean to pick on him because I think he's been incredible. He's shooting 45% from 3 in the last 6 weeks. That's not going to continue. But everything else, everything under the hood, the 2-point shooting, the passing, the rebounding, that stuff's all seems pretty sustainable to me. And I think also the shooting does look better.
It looks real.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks real.
Agreed. The mechanics are cleaner. He's shooting the ball confidently. When I say I don't think it's going to be 45%, that's not me picking on Jalen. That's what I'd say about basically anybody that shoots that kind of level. That's not a clearly lit shooter. I do buy the shooting improvement, and if that is real, to your point, that unlocks so many things, because teams used to just play well off of him, and you still probably have to sometimes. Even LeBron, who people were comparing Jalen more and more to, whatever. I don't want to compare anybody to LeBron, but they play similarly in some respects. LeBron, even when LeBron had proven himself to be a shooter, still had guys playing off of him because
Yeah.
of all the things that he could beat you with, that was the easiest one for the defense to accept. Like, all right, hopefully you'll miss today is kind of like what you have to get to with someone who's 6'9" freight train. And the best version of Jalen could get to that kind of level at some point.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting. Like you go think back to last season. Again, I'm not a shooting coach. So I don't want to feel like I can watch a guy's motion and give you the 18 things. I'm not that's not what I'm capable of doing.
Same.
But last year, a lot of it was on the catch at the 3-point line. Do I take the closeout? Do I take the shot? And it was a little bit of a slow decision and deliberate decision making process. This year, he just fires. He just takes the shot. Right?
Yep.
It's quick. It's an immediate read. So it's like it's clicked. If you're open at the 3-point line and the closeout's late, just shoot the basketball. And the reads and the confidence is there. The repeatability, look to me again as a lay person looking at a shooting form, looks like it's good. But it looks like he's just confident in what he's doing, and that goes a long way to helping you make shots. Do I expect him to be a perennial 45%, like a Luke Kennard level shooter? No, I don't expect that.
No.
But it wouldn't shock me if he settles in at 38, right
Sure.
around that at that range, which for a guy who can get to the rim the way he can, a guy who can function in transition the way that he can, that having that makes, talk about being a 3-level scorer, be able to shoot 38% from the 3-point line and force a closeout to come at you, and you can attack that closeout and just create an absolute collapse of defense because it takes 3 guys to keep you off the rim. Now we're talking about doing some real impactful, disruptive stuff with the ball in his hands on offense, and adding that to his game as a shot maker from the 3-point line. Massive difference in what he can do offensively to help his team.
He's also taking more threes. I think he's averaging 5.5 3-point attempts per game in this last couple of weeks, and that is a notable bump. And I always say this about Dyson, we'll talk about in a second too. But all these guys, volume matters almost as much as accuracy in the NBA with the way that teams guard you. Like if you won't shoot, teams will ignore you. And percentage can be variable sometimes. But volume really dictates a lot. And if you're willing to take 5-6 3-point attempts per game for Jalen Johnson, that does help you in a lot of different ways, because then teams will start to play a little bit further up, which allows you to drive by them. Some of his half court stuff is not picture perfect yet, but he's developed very well as far as counters when he's being defended certain ways. And we don't have to go out and do an hour on Jalen Johnson, but that was one of the questions that we had this summer when we talked about his player capsule. Okay, what's his half court go-to thing? And I don't know about you, I've been impressed with the development there. He's still not a fully formed entity, but that's a huge compliment to him that he's able to do this without being that. That's kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, it is. And there's still little things he's got to work on. There are times he lets a defender push him left, and that's not optimal for him. And so how do I fight that and get right? I want to get right with my right hand. And when he goes left, he kind of ends up with a little bit kind of a fadeaway shot, not really attacking the basket directly. So there's little nuances there. I don't think we need to hammer him for that. He's still learning and growing. But to be able to recognize when your defender is trying to push you left and how to counter that, can you use a bursty first step, get past him and seal him on your back and get back middle? Just little technique like that to get back middle is stuff that I think that he'll learn to do. As opposed to just being like, oh, he's pushing me left, so I'm going to go left. No, get past him and seal it. You have an explosive first step, and so if the guy's on your right hip, take that space away from him, get downhill, put him on your back hip, whatever it is, get back middle and function that way. So that's a little nuance that I'm looking for him to kind of realize that that's the stuff I need to be doing to dictate, what the defender is trying to do to me.
There's no reason to let your big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. And right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All their limited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months on unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. What makes this even better is how simple Mint Mobile actually is to making the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. You want to switch to Mint Mobile, it's actually really easy because you keep the actual same coverage for a lower price. So it takes only a few minutes. You can actually bring your own phone and number without any issues whatsoever. The service is fast, it's reliable, even on the go, and it feels great knowing that you are not only overpaying, to just stay connected. Instead, you're getting a great deal with Mint Mobile. Turn an expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint Mobile. Shop Mint Mobile unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Limited time offer payment of $45 3 months, $90 for 6 months, and $190 for 12 months. Plan required, $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. We'll call this the breakout section because I'll just go to Nickeil Alexander-Walker real fast while we're here and stay positive for a second. I know how you feel about Nickeil and your sources in Minnesota how they feel about Nickeil as well. Everybody loves Nickeil up there. I talked to Dane Moore, your friend and mine, this summer on the show, and he praised Nickeil, got people really excited about Nickeil. It's so funny. I harkened back. Actually, I did a little bit of a Twitter search the other night to the first couple of games, and Hawks fans kind of panicking about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I had a good laugh because he's been incredible. And I'm poking fun, but since I think he was 2 for 15 in the opener, like he had a bad shooting night on a big stage, and since then he's averaging 21 points a game on 62% true shooting.
Insane.
I mean, even I say that long way enough to say, like, you and I are really high on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I don't think anybody, I don't want to speak for you, I don't think anybody saw him averaging 21 a game for the first third of the season on good efficiency. And I don't know how sustainable it is. It seems somewhat sustainable to me with the way he is playing. But what have you seen from him, and what's different? Because that's a question I get all the time. So I'm going to really just shove it to you. What's different? Like, how was he able to do this after he was averaging 9 points a game in Minnesota? Like, it's a very simple question, but it really is crazy that he's doubled his scoring output in that shorter period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's several things going on. One is he can play off Jalen. I think that helps a lot, right? Number two is there's no Rudy Gobert on this team. Like, Rudy's in the dunker spot. Like Rudy, I say, lives it up in the dunker spot, like on offensive possessions, etc. And his ability just to get past his defender with dribble craft and out, all that sort of stuff. It's not like super high level stuff. But in Minnesota, he basically sat on the 3-point line, like on almost every possession, and was kind of a catch and shoot guy. Didn't have the opportunities he has here now. Remember, he played for Quinn early in his career in Utah, right? And so there's that relationship and that belief that's there. But I mean, his ability to get to the rim and fight, really fight to the rim and finish impressively at the rim, especially a lot of us, he has his left hand, you just can't get to it. Is there. And so his willingness to just really try to embrace the aggressiveness that Quinn really wants his players to have, attacking closeouts, getting to the paint, getting to the rim, is really impressive. I think the thing that Hawks fans will kind of shake their head about now and then, and I will say, like, this is still a brand new role for him, right? He's never had this much usage, not even close in his career. He's never had this much empowerment as an offensive player at any point in his career. So, like, against Denver, he got to the paint and had Veit in the right corner and Luke in the left corner. Now, we were watching from the back. I'm not sure he had real secure possession of the basketball.
Yeah, he really kind of did. And that was one play that I think
you were on the opposite side, so you had a better view than the TV angle, right? So, so I don't think he had secure. And I think the other thing is, that clock is going, like, it's easy to, like, I don't know if I have 6 seconds or 2 seconds or 1.5 seconds. Like, I don't, it's hard to, like, track that.
It was a scramble play. I think it's really easy and I try to make this point on the night too. Like, it's really easy from the outside to be like, he had 2 guys, and they were open, but if you watch the play, it got blown up twice in a row. Yeah. And then he kind of lost the ball on top of that. And it was like, I'm sure he was just scrambled. And to your point, he's not used to being the guy with the ball in his hands right there either. So it's like multiple things going on at the same time. Yeah, it would have been nice to kick to Luke Kennard for an open 3. Like, cool.
Or Veit one side, Luke the other. But again, like, from the TV, I couldn't tell, like, did he have secure possession or not?
He kind of lost
ball kind of high in his hand. So give him a little bit of grace there. But I mean, he is. I think he does need to continue learning to see the broader play. And when there's someone who steps up at the rim, there's someone open the corner to make that pass. You'll see people on Twitter, I think, fairly call it, like, I don't know, they'll use the word tunnel vision. I don't know. I think that's fine to say that's what we see sometimes. I think that's fine to say that, But he is a very high level processor. He's a person who really learns. And what I love about him, like similar to Dyson, he holds himself accountable to when he doesn't play well enough. It's those sorts of things, etc. He's a total stand-up guy. But for me, the passing is really kind of the last phase that hopefully will come along for him. He's a average maybe for a guard, and maybe a tick below below average, but it's reading the play and making that pass, making that kick out pass. That's a little slow for him, I think, right now. That's the one area that, and again, he's never been in a role where he's been empowered to do all of the things that he's doing right now. So I think it's fine for him to have a little grace with himself. I think it's fine for us to give him some space for that, etc. But that's, and how, I mean, again, talking to my folks in Minnesota, dude's a hard worker, like just a really, really hard worker, and wants to learn and grow and get better. So I have confidence that part of his game is going to. I don't expect he's ever going to be some super high level passer, but to be able to read a second defender cutting in from a corner and hit that pass, early on time, that's something that he's a little bit slower. That's the one area of his game where the process is a little slower at times. But I think he'll get there. I just think it's a matter of people understanding that this is a very new role for him and that he needs time to kind of acclimate to, okay, this is when I see a defender cutting from here, the ball goes to the area of the floor where that defender came from, and we get an open three. That's the last step for me to see him kind of really nail that could create even more value for him.
Yeah, the shot making, I don't want to say it's not surprising, but it's not particularly shocking to be on the perimeter. Like, he shot well the last couple of years.
Right.
It's the drives to the rim and the finishes around the rim. That's the huge development offensively for me. But the passing, I remember I looked at my notes the other day from the draft when he was in. So it was 2019, a long time ago. He was considered to be a not particularly encouraging passer even then. Like, that's kind of what the knock on him offensively, even dating back to then. So it's not a huge surprise to me he's not a great passer, because you're right, he's not. Especially at point guard. If he's playing the two, he's a very normal passer at the two. It's more that when he's more on the ball is that he might be a below average passer. But look, beggars can't be choosers. Like, he's not going to be able to. By the way, if he was a great passer, he'd be kind of like a star. He'd be like a fringe star player. Which, because with the way he defends and everything. So obviously it's been great. I think without Trey, having that another guy that could be a scoring engine for you, and particularly a rim pressure guy, because Jalen is that. But if teams, as we talked about earlier, are loading more up on Jalen, give him another guy that can really get there and also finish. Because we'll talk about Dyson in a second. Dyson has done a really good job getting into the paint and passing and kicking and his passing, but he's not been finishing at a super high level this season. And having the 5-out spacing helps everybody, which you did mention briefly, but we should very much say having Okongwu be this and having Porzingis be Porzingis when he's playing
creates a ton of it creates seams to attack, and he's great at attacking those seams.
It's huge, and that does allow him, Nikhil and others, but not especially for Nikhil right now, to have this like double his career average in drives. Like, he's been able to do that without having to worry about running into a brick wall. But his finishing, I mean, some of these finishes, and our mutual friend Howard Jones invoked his cousin on my show last week. I won't do that because Shea is a bit of a ridiculous player. But Nikhil, some of these finishes that Nikhil is making are like star finishes. Really, it's like, whoa, how is he doing that?
Yeah, and how many times have they been down? I don't know, 6-8 points, 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and he literally shoots them back into the game. And so against Denver, he made like 3 huge shots in the last like 5 minutes of that game. Now, the last play, the read, did he have secure possession ball, whatever. But that dude is willing to take shots in the clutch. Just gutsy, step up, and I'm going to take this shot. And he does that all the time for them. And I think that's really, really impressive. But like I said, I have full confidence in his processing and to learn how to kind of process the read of a defense that's rotating. How do you punish a defense that's rotating? How do you make that pass? I think that's the next thing for him to figure out. And when he does, it's going to just be another layer of value he has.
One of my favorite stats right now, you mentioned the fourth quarter scoring. Nikhil's like in the top 20 in the league in fourth quarter scoring this year. He's actually averaging more points per fourth quarter than Jalen. And it's because some of those flurries that he's been having, like to get them into a game or shoot them. I think there was twice in a week where he either got them into a tie or then shot them from a tie into a win, basically, within the same week. So he's been awesome. I wanted to at least kind of group those guys together. I mean, not everything is parallel, but Jalen's breakout and Nikhil's breakout. Jalen's is a different level of breakout. It's like, hey, I'm an all-star. Look at me. That's a different level of breakout. But as much as we all celebrated and I did celebrate the N'Keal contract. I loved that. It was a good move.
Yeah.
Getting this from him, even if it's only for 6 weeks so far, is like, man, that guy's signed for the mid-level. Like, he is performing well above the mid-level exception at this very moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you watch him, like, he's getting all these starts because Trey's out. And like, if Trey was playing, like, he'd be like leading sixth man, candidate for, something like that.
Well, most improved player. I mean,
yeah, he's in the mix.
He should be a candidate for that right now.
Absolutely for that. And it's so nice to see, and it's one of those things, like, I know more about him because of my connections to Minnesota, but it's just always, he's a guy who's easy to root for. He's just a good person. He's a good teammate, good culture guy who has all that. Just find it really, really, really easy to root for guys like that. And so it's fun to watch what he's doing with this opportunity. And it's exciting to see the growth. And I think, it's one of those things. It's like when last year when the Hawks traded for Dyson and gave him his first starting role ever, like, that means something to a player. And I think with N'Keal, the vote of confidence that he feels from his teammates and the coaching staff that, hey, we believe in you to go out and do these things for our offense for the first time ever, that stuff has real meaning to players. And I think that's great to see.
All right, that is all for part 1 of 2. Please stay tuned for part 2. It'll be in the same podcast feed soon, if not already. And please subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And thank you for making Locked On Hawks your first listen of the day. And thank you as well for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the land. And you already live your team every day. And you take it up a level now and go ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Hawks with no interruptions, with members-only Discord access, and much more. All for $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonhawks.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Please stay tuned again for part 2 in the same podcast feed, and we'll see you all next time.